The master said, "In ruling a country of 1,000 chariots there should be scrupulous attention to business, honesty, economy, charity, and employment of the people at the proper season. A virtuous ruler is like the pole star, which keeps its place, while all the other stars do homage to it." People despotically governed and kept in order by punishments may avoid infraction of the law, but they will lose their moral sense. People virtuously governed and kept in order by the inner law of self-control will retain their moral sense, and moreover become good. Duke Hai asked, saying, "What must I do that my people may be contented?" Confucius replied, "Promote the upright and dismiss all evildoers, and the people will be contented. Promote the evildoers and dismiss the upright, and the people will be discontented."
I was the honorary epithet of the Duke of Lu who was reigning during the last years of Confucius' life.
Qi Kangzu asked by what means he might cause his people to be respectful and loyal, and encourage them in the path of virtue. The master replied, "Conduct yourself towards them with dignity, and you will earn their respect. Be a good son and a kind prince, and you will find them loyal. Promote the deserving and instruct those who fall short, and they will be encouraged to follow the path of virtue."
Qi Kangzu succeeded to the headship of the great Qi family in 491, when Qi Huan died, by whom he was advised to recall Confucius from his long wanderings. The sage, however, did not return until 8 years later.
Someone, addressing Confucius, said, "Why, sir, do you take no part in the government?" The master replied, "What does the book of history say about filial piety? Do your duty as a son and as a brother, and these qualities will make themselves felt in the government. This, then, really amounts to taking part in the government. Holding office need not be considered essential. The people can be made to follow a certain path, but they cannot be made to know the reason why." Zhu Kung asked for a definition of good government. The master replied, "It consists in providing enough food to eat, in keeping enough soldiers to guard the state, and in winning the confidence of the people. And if one of these three things had to be sacrificed, which should go first?" The master replied, "Sacrifice the soldiers. And if of the two remaining things one had to be sacrificed, which should it be?" The master said, "Let it be the food. From the beginning, men have always had to die. But without the confidence of the people no government can stand at all." Xing, Duke of the Qi state, questioned Confucius on the art of government. Confucius replied, "Let the sovereign do his duty as a sovereign, the subject his duty as a subject, the father his duty as a father, and the son his duty as a son." "A good answer," said the Duke, "for unless sovereign and subject, father and son do their respective duties, however much grain there may be in the land, I could obtain none to eat." Zhu Chang put a question about the art of governing. The master said, "Devote yourself patiently to the theory, and conscientiously to the practice, of government." Qi Kangzu asked Confucius for advice on the subject of government. Confucius replied, "To govern is to keep straight. If you, sir, lead the people straight, which of your subjects will venture to fall out of line?"
The point of the original lies partly in the fact that the Chinese words for govern and straight are similar in form and identical in sound.
Qi Kangzu, being vexed by robbers, asked Confucius for his advice. Confucius replied, saying, "If you, sir, can check your own cupidity, there will be no stealing, even though rewards should be offered for theft." Qi Kangzu questioned Confucius on a point of government, saying, "Ought not I to cut off the lawless in order to establish law and order? What do you think?" Confucius replied, "Sir, what need is there of the death penalty in your system of government? If you showed a sincere desire to be good, your people would likewise be good. The virtue of the prince is like unto wind, that of the people, like unto grass. For it is the nature of grass to bend when the wind blows upon it. Zulu asked for a hint on the art of governing. The master replied, "Take the lead and set the example of diligent toil." Asked for a further hint, he said, "Be patient and untiring." Chung Kung, being prime minister to the head of the Chi clan, asked for advice on governing. The master said, "Make a point of employing your subordinates, overlook trifling mistakes, raise to office worthy and able men." "But," said Chung Kung, "how am I to discover these worthy men and single them out for promotion?" "Promote those that you know," was the reply. "As for those that you do not know, will not their claims be brought before you by others?" Zulu said, "The Prince of Wei is waiting, sir, for you to take up the reins of government. Pray, what is the first reform you would introduce?" The master replied, "I would begin by defining terms and making them exact." "Oh, indeed!" exclaimed Zulu. "But how can you possibly put tilings straight by such a circuitous route?" The master said, "How unmannerly you are, ooh! In matters which he does not understand, the wise man will always reserve his judgment. If terms are not correctly defined, words will not harmonize with things. If words do not harmonize with things, public business will remain undone. If public business remains undone, order and harmony will not flourish. If order and harmony do not flourish, law and justice will not attain their ends. If law and justice do not attain their ends, the people will be unable to move hand or foot. The wise man, therefore, frames his definitions to regulate his speech, and his speech to regulate his actions. He is never reckless in his choice of words."
The hidden meaning of this saying is made clear by the context to be found in Sima Chen's biography of Confucius. The Prince of Wei at this time was the young man mentioned on page 128 as holding the throne against his own father. By so doing, he had in some sort inverted the relationship which should have subsisted between them, and each was in a false position, the father being deprived of his proper parental dignity, and the son no longer doing his duty as a son. See page 41. Confucius then is administering a veiled rebuke to the young ruler, for in saying that the first reform necessary is the correct definition of names, he implies in effect that the terms father and son, among others, should be made to resume their proper significance. An alternative rendering of Chengming as rectification of the written character, though backed by the great authority of M. Sivan, can only be described as feeble and far-fetched, and has been ably confuted by Herr Frank in the Tung Pao for July, 1906.
Fan Shi asked to be taught the art of husbandry. The master said, "Any farmer can teach you that better than I can." He then asked to be taught gardening. The master said, "Any gardener will teach you that better than I can." Fan Shi having gone out, the master said, "What a small-minded man is Fan Su. If the ruler is addicted to modesty and self-control, his people will not permit themselves to be irreverent. If the ruler loves justice and duty, his people will not venture to be unruly. If the ruler loves sincerity and good faith, the people will not be slow to respond. Such being his qualities, the people will flock to him from all quarters, with their babes strapped to their backs. What need for him to know the art of husbandry?"
Confucius is of course merely insisting on the principle of division of labor, and not by any means depreciating the value of husbandry or other useful arts. It is not the ruler's business to make himself proficient in these, because the task of governing and setting an example to the governed will claim all his attention. Compare Plato's disapproval of and Confucius' remarks on his own skill in various arts, page 88.
The master said, "If the ruler is personally upright, his subjects will do their duty unbidden. If he is not personally upright, they will not obey, whatever his bidding. When the master went away, Janu drove his carriage. The master said, "What an abundant population." Janu said, "Now that the people are so abundant, what is the next thing to be done?" "Enrich them," said Confucius. "And having enriched them, what then?" "Teach them," was the reply. The master said, "If a country had none but good rulers for 100 years, crime might be stamped out and the death penalty abolished." How true this saying is. If a kingly sovereign were to appear, by the end of one generation natural goodness would prevail. If a man can reform his own heart, what should hinder him from taking part in government? But if he cannot reform his own heart, what has he to do with reforming others? Duke Ting asked if there was a single sentence by which a country might be made to flourish. Confucius answered, "No single sentence can be expected to have such a virtue as this. But there is the common saying, to be a good king is difficult, to be a good minister is not easy." He who realizes the difficulty of being a good king, has he not almost succeeded in making his country prosper by a single sentence? "Is there a single sentence," continued the Duke, "by which a country can be ruined?" Confucius answered, "No such power can reside in any single sentence. But there is a saying, I have no joy in kingly rule, I rejoice only because none can oppose my will. Now if the king's will is good, and none opposes it, all may be well, but if it is not good, and yet none opposes it, has he not almost succeeded in ruining his country by a single sentence?"
The weak ruler of the Lu state, 510 to 494 BC, who lost the services of Confucius by his infatuation in accepting the insidious gift of 80 beautiful singing girls from the Qi state. See Introduction, page 16.
The Duke of Shi asked about the conditions of good government. The master said, "Government is good when it makes happy those who live under it and attracts those who live far away."
She was a district of the Chu state, which Confucius visited in 488 BC. The following anecdote, told by Tan Kung, is a striking illustration of the above saying. Traveling with his disciples, the master came across a woman weeping and wailing beside a grave, and inquired the cause of her grief. "Alas!" she replied. "My father-in-law was killed here by a tiger, after that, my husband, and now my son has perished by the same death. But why, then, do you not go elsewhere?" "The government here is not harsh," answered the woman. "There," cried the master, turning to his disciples, "remember that. Bad government is worse than a tiger."
Zhu Shur, when governor of Chufu, asked for advice on government. The master said, "Do not try to do things in a hurry. Do not be intent on small gains. What is done quickly is not done thoroughly, and if small gains are considered, great things remain unaccomplished."
Chufu, a small city in Lu.
Zulu asked about the service due to a prince. The master said, "Use no deceit, but if you oppose him openly." The master said, "If the ruler cherishes the principle of self-control, the people will be docile to his commands."
Legge translates, "When rulers love to observe the rules of propriety, the people respond readily to the calls on them for service." All the other translators seem likewise to have missed the point, which is elsewhere insisted on by Confucius, that no man is fit to govern others who cannot govern himself. On the meaning of Li, see Introduction, and note on page 60.
Shun was one who did nothing, yet governed well. For what, in effect, did he do? Religiously self-observant, he sat gravely on his throne, and that is all.
Chun, a legendary emperor. This saying might have come straight from the mouth of a Taoist philosopher. Nor is it the only place where Confucius seems to advocate quietism.
In serving your prince, make the actual service your first care, and only put the emolument second. The head of the Qi clan was on the point of attacking the small principality of Chuanyu. Jianu and Qilu came to see Confucius, and said, "Our lord is going to have trouble with Chuanyu." Confucius said, "Is it not you, Chu, who are to blame in this? The ancient kings long ago made Chuanyu the center of the worship of the eastern Men Mountain, and moreover it is situated within the territory of Lu. Its ruler has independent priestly functions. What right have you to attack it?" Jianu replied, "It is the will of our master. We, his ministers, have neither of us any wish to act thus." "Chu," said Confucius, Shugen had a saying, "If you are capable of displaying energy, hold office; if not, resign. Of what use is that minister likely to be, who does not sustain his master in the presence of danger, or support him when about to fall? Besides, what you say is wrong. If a tiger or a wild buffalo escapes from its cage, if a tortoise shell or jade ornament is smashed in its casket, whose fault is it, pray?" Jianu replied, "But Chuanyu is strongly fortified, and close to our own town of Bai. If we do not take it now, it will cause trouble to our descendants in a later generation." Confucius rejoined, "Chu, an honest man hates your hypocrite who will not openly avow his greed, but tries instead to excuse it. I have heard that the ruler of a state or of a clan is troubled not by the smallness of its numbers but by the absence of even-handed justice, not by poverty but by the presence of discontent, for where there is justice there will be no poverty, where there is harmony there will be no lack in numbers, where there is content there will be no revolution. This being the case then, if outlying communities resist your authority, cultivate the arts of refinement and goodness in order to attract them, and when you have attracted them, make them happy and contented. Now you two, U and Chu, are aiding and abetting your master. Here is an outlying community which resists your authority, and you are unable to attract it. Partition and collapse are imminent in your own state, and you are unable to preserve it intact. And yet you are planning military aggression within the borders of your country. Verily I fear that Chisin's troubles will come, not from Chuanyu, but from the interior of his own palace."
Literally, a minister of the altars to the spirits of the land and grain, that is, a direct vassal of the emperor, and responsible only to him. Cho Gen, an ancient historiographer, of whom very little is known. The head of the Qi clan mentioned above.
When the master came to Wu Cheng, he heard the sound of singing and stringed instruments. He was pleased, but said with a smile, "Is it necessary to take a poleaxe to kill a fowl?" Zhu replied, "Some time ago, sir, I heard you say that the study of true principles made the ruler beneficent and men of the lower class easy to govern." "My children," said the master, "Yen is right. What I said was only in jest."
Wuxing means martial city, so called from its impregnable position. Zhu Yu, when appointed governor, had succeeded in weaning the people from their warlike propensities and in introducing the milder arts of peace. This is what made the master glad, though he could not help being amused at the application of the loftiest principles to such a tiny community. About ancient Chinese music we know unfortunately, next to nothing, but it seems to have played as important a part under the Zhou dynasty as in Plato's ideal state.
Zhu Chang asked Confucius, saying, "What are the essentials of good government?" The master said, "Esteem the 5 excellent, and banish the 4 evil things, then you will become fit to govern." Zhu Chang asked, "What are the 5 excellent things?" The master replied, The wise and good ruler is benevolent without expending treasure, he lays burdens on the people without causing them to grumble, he has desires without being covetous, he is serene without being proud, he is awe-inspiring without being ferocious. He is benevolent without expending treasure. What does that mean? The master replied, he simply follows the course which naturally brings benefit to the people. Is he not thus benevolent without expending treasure? In imposing burdens, he chooses the right time and the right means, and nobody can grumble. His desire is for goodness, and he achieves it. How should he be covetous? The wise and good ruler never allows himself to be negligent, whether he is dealing with many men or with few, with small matters or with great. Is this not serenity without pride? He has his cap and robe properly adjusted, and throws a noble dignity into his looks, so that his gravity inspires onlookers with respect. Is he not thus awe-inspiring without being ferocious? Zhu Chang then asked, what are the 4 evil things? The master said, cruelty, leaving the people in their native ignorance, yet punishing their wrongdoing with death. Oppression, requiring the immediate completion of tasks imposed without previous warning. Ruthlessness, giving vague orders, and then insisting on punctual fulfillment. Peddling husbandry, stinginess in conferring the proper rewards on deserving men.
That is to say, the ruler will always keep the welfare of his people in view, but without indulging in indiscriminate largesse. The ever-increasing doles of money and corn with which the Roman emperors were obliged to buy the favor of the populace would thus have fallen under the condemnation of Confucius. The 4 evil things really turn out to be reducible to 2, namely, 1. Cruelty, covering the first 3, and 2. Meanness.